You can go to extremes and impossible schemes. You can laugh when your dreams fall apart at the seams. And life gets more exciting with each passing day. And love is either in your heart or on its way. Don't you know that it's worth every treasure on earth to be young at heart? For as rich as you are, it's much better by far to be young at heart. And if you should survive to 105, look at all you'll derive out of being alive. And this is the best part. You have a head start if you are among the very young at heart.
One for Fred Sweeney, 2 for Fred Sweeney, 3 for Fred Sweeney, 4 for Fred Sweeney.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Chicken.
Okay, so
Two.
we got 2. So the chair will be Fred Sweeney.
Voted for yourself.
Okay, and do I hear nominations for the position of vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Brian.
Any other nominations? If not, I have Brian Miller as the sole nominee for vice chair. This will be a viva voce or oral vote. So all those in favor of electing Brian Miller as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the vote is unanimous, and so that's Brian Miller is now the vice chair for 2016.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you may proceed with the meeting.
Exactly where we are. All right. So the other part of the meeting is if there's anyone in the audience wishing to address the board on any item not on today's agenda, they can come forward now. Seeing no one come forward, Chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for the approval of minutes of the January 5th, 2016 meeting. Is that the one we're holding off on?
I don't have.
Okay, so we're going to postpone approval of those minutes to our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, and then we have a consent calendar for this morning, January 11th.
Sorry, Bernie, can I borrow yours?
That's great.
Okay, the consent calendar minutes for Monday, January 11th are as follows. We have item A, 1255 Delegara Road. Or, I'm sorry, excuse me, 1215 Delegara Road. This project was continued indefinitely to staff hearing officer to return to consent with comments as noted. We have item B, 2405 State Street. This project received approval of the review after final as submitted. Item C, 523 Conejo Road. This project received final approval with condition as noted. Item D, 1937 Robin Street. This project received final approval as submitted. And lastly, item E, 910 Camino Viejo Road. This project received final approval of the perimeter landscaping and fencing only with the conditions as noted below. These items were reviewed by Chair Sweeney and Board Member Pierce. Item B was reviewed by Board members Motisha and Pierce.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Hearing none, Chair will call for a vote. All in favor, or excuse me, we have to have a motion for approval. Do we have a motion for
I'll
approval?
make that motion.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. The January 4th one, we already voted on. We already reviewed at our last meeting, correct?
Yes, we did.
All right. So then we're on to any other announcements?
Yes, just briefly, Board Member James will be absent from today's meeting. And also I want to mention that next week's consent calendar meeting will be held on a Tuesday because our city offices will be closed on Monday in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to publicly put out a thank you to Dale Francisco because I think tomorrow's going to be his last day at the City Council, and he was very instrumental in helping put all this together. So I just want to put that out. And he was actually the City Council liaison for us.
Yes. So a note to thank you to Councilman
Yeah.
Francisco.
He did a lot of work.
Thank you. Any other announcements, comments? Okay, no subcommittee reports that I know about, so let's go to our first item, 302 East Calle Loratus. This project was last reviewed on October 19th, 2015, and it is here today for final approval. Mr. Miller, when you have a moment, you could read what we did last time.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Provide a landscape plan. Number 2, provide a color board. Number 3, provide design details. Number 4, unmute myself. Number 1, provide a landscape plan. Number 2, provide a color board. Number 3, provide design details. Number 4, the board has positive comments regarding the project's consistency and appearance, neighborhood compatibility, and quality of architecture and materials. Action carried by Motisha, seconded by Woolery. The action was passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Jason Grant with J. Grant Design Studio, and
Jessica Harlan with Barefoot Design.
If you could share with us what you've done.
okay, so no architectural changes because we were in a pretty good spot and we got design approval the last time. So for those of you that remember, we're doing our addition with the garage down below. I'll just get to the elevations, and keyed in the details. So once again, 2-car garage tucked in below with the addition here, and this addition is kind of sitting towards the back. Some little fenestration along the front just to kind of dress it up and give it a sense of entry. Roof plan. A couple simple sections through where the garage is at, through the other portion of the house. It's 8-foot plate and 8-foot plate. And then in terms of architectural detailing, railing detail, top of the fireplace cap detail, our window details. We'll do an extended sill and then kind of do a trim detail to kind of help deepen up those windows and give it a nice kind of traditional look where the siding meets it. The bay window detail that you see in the front, corbel detail on the rakes, on the entryway coming in, have the stone come up 3 feet, and that'll be the Santa Barbara sandstone that we'll have along the base there, so it'll be kind of nice material tie-in. In edge of the deck detail, which is on the back side, typical. That's called a window apron, right? Correct. Yeah. Yes. And then kind of typical siding exterior details, the stone veneer attachment details, and then just a tier 2 plan kind of showing where our water's going and what we're doing. And then, of course, I'll just show the materials and colors right now since we're here. Materials and colors look like this. So it's Santa Barbara sandstone down below on the fireplace, and on these details here, exterior light fixture looks like this, which meets our dark sky requirements. The pavers that will be in the drive, they're heritage kind of buff pavers, and so it's kind of a natural, it's kind of a nice tie-in with the sandstone color. The hardy siding will be Hampton gray. It's a little bit warmer than this color is showing here, but it gives you an idea. And then everything else will be kind of a stone white. That will be the windows and the trims, any of the corbel details, the fascia, and these little pop outs. So that'll be a stone white. So kind of just give it a nice contrast with the gray of the body of the house. And then the windows will be wood casement with a clad-like exterior, and this is where we'll do the extended sill detail, and then the trim, which will kind of wrap up and around and kind of give them a little bit deeper look. Just kind of a standard detail for that. And that's it for architecture, and Jessica's here to show her beautiful, wonderful landscape plan.
Oh, you're sweet. So, please, one of my hatches didn't print right, but what this is supposed to be is drip irrigation in the front. We have 2 zones. It's pretty simple because it's a remodel. We're not really going to touch the back. It's an existing lawn that's just getting decreased in size. The front, we're putting in a couple low retaining walls, maximum, I think it's 36 inches, and with tiered planting, a little kind of view deck that the client wanted, but primarily drip irrigation. We have above surface drip irrigation in the tiers, and then in the lower terrace by the road, we have a subsurface drip. For the planting plan, it's a simple palette that's kind of a mixed, low water use, native or not native and Mediterranean palette. We have agave attenuata to accent above and within those boulder walls, Bacchus pigeon point as a ground cover, Pennisetum fairy tales as just an accent plant, so that as the sun sets, kind of more or less over here, it backlights and kind of has a fun accent. And then just our Salvia leucantha, the Mexican sage, as kind of a bulletproof flower plant for the drought. Down under here, again, a hatch that kind of didn't print right is Diamondia marguerite, so silver creeper at the road. Again, very simple. We have our permeable paving for the driveway with our concrete apron within that right-of-way. And then landscape, we have just a steel landscape edging that, where is that? Oh, just between the Diamondia and the little path up with our 30-inch max boulder retaining walls. So that would be your classic Santa Barbara sandstone gravity wall. And that's about it. Oh, there's a couple trees too. We have liquid amber. There's 1, 2, 3, and that's to kind of accent the woodsy nature of the architecture and provide kind of an accent and breakup on that architectural facade.
Great. Anything else?
That will do it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Mr. Ing, did we get any communication?
No communications.
Okay. Chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I do. I guess it's a simple one. Why did you choose that color for the exterior wall, the gray?
Just the idea, it's going to be a bit more earthy, a little bit tanner than what's kind of showing here.
Okay.
So it's going to have more of a tie into that sandstone that's down below. But the idea is kind of just a natural soft color that would kind of fade the house into the background and kind of not make it too bright, essentially, for lack of a better term. So we like the contrast between, once again, the body and then the windows and the trims. Once again, going to be white. A contrast between the two.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
couple of questions. Okay, so first of all, can you clarify for me what stage have we already given this the green light, or are we just getting to that point, or where are we?
No, they're here for project design approval, which
Right.
means we've already given them
We have.
project concept approval.
Okay.
So they're here for final
Okay.
review. So we just
Okay,
have
well
to
then-
assure ourselves that this looks like a complete set of plans and that we're okay with the landscape plan, which they didn't have last time, and the color board, which they didn't have last time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. I'm a little concerned about the placement of this on the landscape plan of that middle liquid amber so close to the house and the driveway.
We can push it out to that second tier so it's 3 across in there, because this, I'm happy to do that if we want to write that.
Well, I'm just concerned from the point of view that they surface root so much that.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that.
And the fire department will let you put that close to the house?
Yeah.
Has to be 15 feet.
Why don't we just eliminate that?
Yeah, it's a lot of tree for the front
Yeah,
of this
no,
house.
I totally understand. If that's the only comment on landscape,
Yeah.
I'm happy to eliminate that tree.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea because they get huge and that's just you won't even see that. I mean, it's just going to be like a.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Other questions? I have just a couple. One is the garage door color is going to be what?
It's going to be a solid body stain, kind of a deep wood color, actually. Sorry, I don't have that sample
So
on
is
there.
that similar in gray tone to these?
No, it actually is going to be complementary too. We're getting a wood grain solid carriage door, and so that'll be it's kind of a warm brown, essentially, solid body stain, and that will be for the front door, and that will be for the
Okay. So
garage door.
those colors aren't clear. Okay.
That color is not there.
And then, just curious, did I see how you're venting? Do you have an attic you have to vent?
There's no attic space.
Okay, so you're doing the solid
Right.
isoning. Okay, cool. Those were my questions. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have
Yes.
a quick one for the landscape. Yeah, did you say that you added a deck, or I heard you say something, I just.
So if you look right here, it's just a little like flagstone set on like patio.
It's not a
Just-
deck,
It's
it's a
on the
patio.
first level?
It's on the
Yeah,
ground.
it's just
Oh,
a
okay.
little like place to put a cafe table.
Okay,
Because they have a nice kind of sunset view this way, and that was just a request of the.
all righty,
It's not a deck.
okay,
That was
just asking.
Okay, other questions? Okay, this project is here for project or final approval, so you may want to couch your comments in that direction, and then depending on how people bring a motion forward.
Well, I have one more question with
Sure.
a kind of a comment. I'm a little concerned about the body color of the house. That's why I wanted to ask, because it looks like a steel gray to me, but I don't think this is accurate.
It's not. It's more of a
So-
weathered gray, for like
Okay.
a lack of a better term. And so, sorry, it's just a sample. It'd be better if I showed it on the actual material, the
Okay.
shake. It won't be a deep, modern-looking gray. It's a very kind of weathered, natural gray.
I'll trust your design.
It's guarantee it.
So how do we as a board get to see the color, the accurate color?
Look right there.
But I mean, in reality,
Well, it's
Well,
kind of this,
you
you have to trust him. I mean,
I know what you're saying, and I know the
Yeah.
color you're aiming for goes
Right.
with the style of the house.
Exactly.
right.
like
Yeah.
a silvered out, like
Exactly.
redwood or something.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, other comments or questions? Okay,
I have a comment.
yes.
As I said before, I think you've done a great job on this remodel. Oh, yeah, I grew up right across the street. And, there's about 4 houses right in a row that this could happen to, and they stuck them that far up off the road. It fits the neighborhood great. It really looks nice in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
It will look nice in the neighborhood.
Well, thank you.
I told before.
Okay, other comments? Okay, someone ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we approve the project, approve it for final approval with the conditions that or with the things that you have completed that we asked before. Do I have to list those?
Yep.
yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't.
So, colors are
color
okay?
board. Color board is very nice.
Is it okay? It's approvable.
It's approved.
Okay.
Color board is approved.
And the garage door
Garage
colors
doors,
as he's
color-
proposing, you
as
know
you
the colors
proposed,
now?
the wood grained
Right.
are approved.
Okay. And landscape plan?
And the landscape plan is approved with the removal of that one tree, which will make it look more like
Yeah,
what the elevation is. And with the, also it's very consistent in appearance with the neighborhood, compatibility with the neighborhood. Architectural materials are very good and approved. And trees, we have requested the removal of one tree, yes. And consistent with good neighbor guidelines, and the other two are not involved. That's my...
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Ing, just one quick question. I believe in our project design approval that we addressed the fact that we recognize this was 89% FAR. We've already done that. That was in the last one. Does I need to say anything about that again?
No, we don't have to say anything about that again.
Okay, because we've already done. Okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried.
Thank you so much.
Go to the building department. This decision will have a 10-day appeal period.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Good, thank you. So does this go, that goes to David.
Want to take one? All right, congrats. Same to you.
Let's go to 1568 Los Canales Road.
Good.
Been a while.
Yeah, it has. I was just thinking that.
Okay, this project is here for project design approval. It was last reviewed on November 16th, 2015. In a minute, Mr. Miller will read what our action was last time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, the board finds acceptable the proposed project design. Number two, the board finds no public views are impacted. Number three, the chair stated for the public record that the board is mainly an architectural design and aesthetics board for mass, bulk, and scale, the neighborhood compatibility. Therefore, private view concerns of the public are not within the board's purview. Number four, the board encouraged both the applicant and the neighbors to work together with the good neighbor guidelines to achieve neighborhood compatibility. Action carried by Woolery, seconded by James. The action was voted unanimously.
Thank you. If you could introduce yourself, please.
My name is Tom Oxner, project architect.
Okay, if you could share with us how you address those issues.
Okay, so what we basically developed the project beyond its conceptual stage. So what we've done, I've got better photos if anyone cares to see color photos here. I don't know if that's these in the black and white, but if there is that, I've got a colored one here.
Might be preferable if you did color
Yeah.
since you're on TV.
Let's do that. So this project, there's two parts to it, as we recall. We're adding, extending out on the east end of the existing house with a covered patio and a 4-foot bump out to the family room. And the second part of the project is a accessory structure that's going up into the hill against that bank with a garage below and an accessory structure above it, a small exercise room above that. So there's a third component, which is the conversion of a garage into habitable, but it really doesn't change the exterior, so there hasn't been a lot of discussion on that. This is within the existing footprint of the house. Let's see, so let's start with the addition to the east. This is the existing plan. And so as you can see, we're coming out in these two directions here, and then this is the covered patio. This just got developed. You see there's the roof's coming up and doing this kind of a thing, which can create an internal volume that kind of links the interior with the exterior. But the detailing, it's the same. eaves and rakes. The house has an existing soffitted eave, which we're choosing not to carry on just the east side, but we're doing it on the other portions of the house where it ties in. It's not a very good look, and so we're trying to stick with it but deviate from it slightly. You can see here, there it is again, but the rake matches the rake that we've got on the house, and there we're picking up on it. A section through that is like this, so this is the added on interior, and then this is the covered exterior. Keeping in line with the existing house, let's move to the garage structure. So this has been just, I think, slightly refined based upon some staff spatial descriptions, but 2-car garage, trash, exterior half bath for the gardener workshop and storage. And then this pushes right into that hillside here, so the grade above it is really right about at the finished floor of the space above it. This is the space above it, so you can see that the grade here is the natural grade of the existing slope. So this is the roof of the structure, gable running in the direction of the car. The finished elevation on the site plan is 830, so as you can see, we've just got standard plates coming up to an 8-foot ceiling in the garage, 8-foot plate at the structure above it. That puts this structure similar to a 1-story structure from the grade and from the neighbor beyond. I think we looked at that last time. And working our way around the front of the building, and then this is the side that faces the house to the south. And as far as there's a section through that structure, you can see the grade behind it. And develop the details. We've got these are the details that we're predominantly promoting, but we do have a little bit of the soffitted eave that we're tying in with the existing house. Garage door details and typical window detail. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay. Anything else? That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, Chair will open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to address this project? Come forward. Mr. Ng, do we have any communications on this?
No, we do not.
Okay. Seeing no one come forward, the Chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I do. Go ahead.
Yes.
I don't.
Oh,
Yes.
on page, can we look at page A4? And I just wondered if those windows are existing or new.
I have an
Or maybe, yeah, on the next page, I think it is. These,
Yeah, these are new. That's a bifold French door with a transom window above it. So this is actually back, Bernie, deep inside the covered patio. You're looking, these columns are out in front, so you're actually looking at the wall that's back behind. So that, I'll show you on the floor plan where that is. So we're looking this way, like this, and we're seeing this bifold unit back behind.
and my second question, I just don't remember, did we have any neighbors here last time we were here?
We did,
And,
yeah. We had the neighbor behind to the north, and she was concerned about the height of the structure and what it would do to her view. And we looked at, I had an overall aerial, and we were looking at it, and it was kind of determined that not only was the building, represented really just a low 1-story building from the grade on this property, but also there was a tree in the way anyway, and it wouldn't have had an effect.
okay.
And I'm assuming that's what comment 3 was about. And I'm assuming, because I wasn't here, you were the chair. So I assume that's your
Oh,
comment.
about the private views.
Okay.
Have you had any conversation since?
I have.
And
Yeah.
because I don't see her here today.
Yeah, I think she feels confident because the board expressed, a level of confidence that even though you don't protect views, that this wasn't really going to affect your view anyway. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, I do have a question. This is
Yes.
kind of too late, and I do not say this to require any changes, but Did you ever explore the possibility of the roof changing the pitch the other direction
I didn't.
so that it matched the pitch of the existing house? Because you have it kind of you have a perpendicular.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This one, I did. The purpose of that is to, the purpose of running it the other way is so that we could get a, connect the volumes from the inside. The design idea here is to create a living space and an outdoor space and bring the ceilings up with a transom and try to get high volumes to kind of straddle these two spaces, one being interior, one being exterior. So it was more of an interior approach. You're right. If it was designed just from the exterior, that would. So we kind of let the inside design lead the way.
Right.
So actually, that exterior covered piece doesn't count as square footage, is that correct?
Right. It's open on three sides.
Right.
You're going to have attic space above those.
That didn't look like it. It was
Very
a
little.
scissor truss.
It's a scissor truss.
Yeah.
Well, not
So you're
attic
gonna
space,
have
but you're going to have volume space above into that area. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? I've just got a few. I was just checking. Is the fireplace new?
This fireplace is existing.
Okay. And so it already has an back.
Yeah, it's
It's that one right there.
it's that one right there. Exactly.
And then the color, what are you thinking the skylight color is going to be? Is it a clear or
Well,
frosted?
it's facing east, so I'm thinking maybe clear. I think
Okay.
it might work as clear.
Okay. And then did you happen to bring a color board today?
You know, I don't have a color board
Okay.
yet, but I'm looking forward to bringing that to client.
Okay. And then I guess my questions to my colleagues, given the minimal amount of new construction being proposed, is there a need for any kind of landscape plan of some sort? Like around the garage or whatever. So that's just a question for the board. Okay. Then let's go to comments. Who has comments?
Oh, that's a new structure.
The applicant's requesting project design approval.
Did we hear from the landscape?
I was just going to
Yeah.
comment.
So what
I
did
think that because the new garage structure, it is a new structure with the exercise room above. That I would like to see a little landscaping around that building. Actually, looks like, and that's a new wall as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So something that's cascading down the wall and something. I mean, I'm not so sure how much anyone can see into this property. I have not been to the site, but it looks like it's not really visible from the street at all.
Yeah, it's well back up.
Yeah.
Somewhat of an easement type.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking
driveway.
more in the terms of erosion control.
Yeah, exactly. And
For
that's-
that reason,
right.
it would be nice to see some ground cover
Yeah,
on
I-
that slope.
I agree.
And Mr. Ing, does the applicant have to do a tier 1, 2, or 3? Do we know yet?
Yeah, for the amount of square footage on the hillside, it's tier 3.
Oh, it's tier 3.
Okay, so we'd have to have a tier 3 plan. Okay. Other questions?
Has any of the board, have any of us actually been up here and walked the property? I know I have.
Oh, it's got a long driveway from Las Canoas. You can't even get in there.
So, but just looking at the pictures, it looks, and the area, you know, there's a lot of vegetation in that
Yeah.
neighborhood. You want to sort of keep the same feeling instead of replacing it all with buildings.
Oh, no, but he's not. It's just a garage structure way in the back. It's
Right,
not even
right.
See
visible.
the size of the site.
Yeah, it's a
Huge
big
site.
piece of property.
And it's a long driveway in,
And there's
which is already
paving right
landscaped.
there. I mean, it's used for vehicle
Right.
parking where that garage is.
Okay. Other comments?
Well, I guess it's important from the street view and the front, whatever can be seen to be landscaped.
Can't see anything.
You can't, yeah,
Can't
this
see
is
it.
not one of these
Look
properties.
on the
that
site
you can
plan,
see.
Bernie, and you'll see that on AS 1.0,
Yeah.
and you'll see that it's a super long driveway to the house.
If you go up, generally,
Flag lot.
when I go out and look at these sites, and I look at every site every week, I always look at them from the public right-of-way, unless I have permission to walk on the property from the owner, and generally that's not the case because I go out on a Saturday or Sunday, so I just, whatever I can see from the public right-of-way. And this site, you can see up there, but you really can't see a lot of this property. You know, just as Denise is pointing out, you just look at the amount of driveway you have to get there.
Okay.
Okay, other comments? I guess my only comment is I'd be a little concerned about the night light issue of the skylight. That's why I was asking what color, because you could disseminate a lantern effect to uphill neighbors. So that I'd be interested in see how you're going to deal with that. And then just with the landscape plan that my landscape colleagues are suggesting, I guess it's kind of a comment, a question. It seems to me we ought to give him some guideline about how far out from the garage we ought to do that, or is that dictated by the Tier 3 work that he has to do?
I was thinking I would take the disturbed area.
The disturbed area. I think the length of that wall, that little retaining wall, is probably as far as you need to go. Because that actual paving all around there is the same already, isn't it? Or
Well, and here you have you've indicated to some degree, I assume it's that line right there, new driveway on this drawing?
This is actually existing driveway in here, but there's a little area here that gets taken away, so that gets removed.
And so is there anything in here that gets to be new in terms of paving?
This is exposed earth that's used for...
No, but I mean, right here, will there be some, as you disturb this to get the foundation and footings in here, are you going to tear some of this out and replace it, or what are you going to do?
That will be torn out and replaced.
And so that existing paving is asphalt?
Asphalt.
Okay.
Is that retaining wall there already?
It is.
At that angle where the...
This one?
No, yeah, this is all coming out from there to there. That existing wall is coming out in favor of a new retaining wall. Exactly.
Okay, so that's all coming in. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Other comments?
It looks like he's going to have some landscaping in the back of that new building because...
that's what I was talking about,
I'm
actually.
thinking around
Because you're going to have
here.
Tier 3 back there, you're going to have to do something with water.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
No comment?
Okay, the project is here for project design approval, not final, so that means the applicant can come back to the full board if that's the desire of the board, or it can go to consent calendar. But if you choose to make a motion to give it project design approval, you may want to include comments, so give some guidance to the applicant before they return.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I'd like to move to give this project design approval. I'd like to move it to the consent calendar. With the following comments, the board would like to see a landscape plan around the disturbed area of construction, in particular around the garage. The board would also like to see some study of the element with a lantern effect of a skylight to prevent any type of lantern effect. Like to see a full set of details, and that is my motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a second to the motion. Is there further discussion?
With the maker of the motion, did you include colorboard?
Oh, and a color board.
That's okay with the second?
Yes. Oh.
Okay. Any other corrections, comments? That's the motion on the floor.
I think we should include that there will be a Tier 3 report on
Yeah, I'll be...
That's a city requirement, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a requirement.
But it
We're
doesn't
gonna
need-
do it
doesn't need to
anyway.
be in the motion. It just he'll have to do it.
I think I'll withdraw that comment.
Whether we ask or not, he gets to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Everyone ready? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. Okay, we'll see you at consent calendar.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Did you make the MPO claim?
Oh, do I do that for
Oh,
this?
yeah, you have to. I'm sorry, yes.
Let me make the following MPO findings.
Yeah, we have to add that in.
The project is consistency in appearance for the development, is compatible to the neighborhood. The quality of architecture materials is appropriate, and the client has followed good neighbor guidelines.
Is that agreeable to the second?
That is agreeable to the seconder?
Let's make that amendment to the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. And this has a 10-day appeal period. Okay. We're at not quite 4:45, and our next item is scheduled for
4 o'clock.
Oh, dear.
four.
Are they here?
Yeah, for 4. Yeah, 4 o'clock. So I'll look to David for guidance. Recess for 5 minutes.
We can read the next
Okay.
description.
to item number 3, 265 Conejo Road. This is here for review after final. Review after final is requested for revisions to the exterior architectural style, fenestration, finished materials, and colors. The revisions also include an increase of a net square footage from 2,579 to 2,657 square feet, and a corresponding increase of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio, FAR, from 45% to 47%. It also includes the addition of exterior stairs, excuse me, the revision of the garage to a carport with storage, a new 12-foot by 8-foot pool, 18-foot pool, and an associated equipment, reduction of the deck from 692 square feet to 265 square feet, and reconfiguration of the interior of the residence. The revisions require substantial conformance determination for the staff hearing officer resolution number 066-13. This project was referred to the full board from the consent agenda on January 4th, 2016. Mr. Miller, could you read to us what we said at that meeting?
Yes. Number 1, provide drawings that clarify the appearance of design elements such as the barrel vault. Number 2, on the plans indicate the pattern. Number 2, on the plans indicate the pattern of the proposed stonework. Number 3, provide exterior lighting details. Number 4, provide details of the transition from stone to stucco at the corner. Action taken by James, seconded by Sweeney. 2-0-0. Motion was carried.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ng, before we go any further, do you have information to share with us?
No, only that whatever decision this board makes, the staff does need to find substantial compliance with the staff hearing officer resolution. So if you do choose to give this an approval, it will be conditioned on those findings from staff.
Okay, and was that staff hearing officer resolution that had modifications or?
Yes, it was for modifications, for zoning modifications.
And those were for setbacks?
Correct.
Correct, okay. The reason, because Lisa and I reviewed that, the reason that we thought it should come back to the board is we felt that the two of us weren't in a position to make a final call on this because, in our opinion, there was a substantial amount of changes to the project. So before we have the applicant share with us what they want to do, what I thought we should look at, and David provided for us, a set of drawings of what was originally approved and move forward for construction. And so the thing that I just want to bring to your attention is the position of the house is more or less in the same place, but the architectural and as described in what we just read, the square footage has been massaged, reduced, and added, and so forth. But this is the style of architecture that was proposed, and the one that was approved. And as you'll see in a moment, when the applicant presents, it was our view that the architecture and style was dramatically different, that we didn't feel comfortable, just the two of us, making a call on it. So that's why we asked it to come to the full board. So this is what was approved back in 2013, and you'll see in a moment what's being proposed now is a different approach to the architecture, and obviously changes the floor plan, et cetera. Okay? So we have this here to look at if we need to, and I'll pull it off the table, set that to the side, and let the applicant and designer introduce themselves, please.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that
Yes.
the modification was for a front setback modification.
Okay, thank you. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Chris Kirkley, designer and the agent for Mr. Robert Light, and Nicholas Riberas, who is not here today.
Okay, thank you. If you could share with us what you're proposing.
So first of all, a little bit of history. This project has actually been sold twice last year, and So then when it got down to these owners, they reviewed it and they liked the footprint and the way it was fitting on the lot. However, their style was not so much of a French kind of chateau, contemporary chateau, but it was more of a Mediterranean island type home. They liked the more contemporary, sleek lines and a lot less volume. And so what we ended up doing, let me go to the, really because most of the differences are really in the elevations. Let me take a look at those. So the original one, this on the front elevation here, if you could see it, it had the tower. I don't know if you were able to review that. And what we've done is we've moved the entry over here, and we've actually brought the massing down. I have something that might help you here. So this red outline actually shows where the original outline of the structure was. And so what we were trying to do is keep within the maximum ridge heights. This actually originally had volume ceilings, so we're not adding a lot of volume or anything into here. The original bedroom was slightly lower in the ceiling from trusses, but the volume is pretty much the same as what it was before. But we actually are bringing down the tower and, like I said, relocating the entry from over here to here. We're also changing from an original garage, and they're proposing a pergola-type carport instead, because it is more traditional to this type of architecture. And then we also don't have the recesses because for the windows, because we are kind of stuck within a footprint. In order to keep our modification, we didn't want to increase the footprint or the walls, and so we're building out fenestrations around the windows in order to deepen that look and help gain that island look. Another addition here is the exterior stairs, which will lead to a roof deck for just this portion here. Just trying to help you understand the differences between the original and what we changed it to. And because of the lot, because it's sloped and also heavy vegetation and also the very long street frontage, we're not anticipating that any neighbors would be bothered by this. There's no real direct view from this location to any other neighbors. The other thing that is being done is the other views. Again, you can see the reduction in the height. We've also, because of the location of where the pool is and needing to be on caissons, we're asking it to be included in this request because we need to be able to get to that location. If the foundation goes in, we won't be able to reach this location for the caissons later. It's a small pool. It's a half-size pool. It's actually taking up less space, like the flip said here, that there was, I think, 600, over almost 700 square feet of deck. We've pulled that back to 200 square feet, or just under 300 square feet, and we've added the pool. And we've actually pulled back away from, let me show you the site plan here. We've pulled back, this is an original outline of where the deck used to go. And we've actually pulled back from this oak, and we're encroaching less on it, less impact. We've also created less of an impact on to this sloped area here, too. There actually is an oak here right now, but it was passed to be able to be removed because it was so badly damaged. If we end up keeping it, we'll try to, but because it looks like it might come back, but it has been approved for removal. The landscaping will stay the same. The stormwater prevention plan will be staying the same. Basically what we're doing is we're just reducing some of the hardscaping, and we're pulling the entry to over here. And there might be a little bit more landscaping added in here that was already called out. So there's not really anything changing in as far as the landscaping or drainage goes. That'll all stay the same. We'll just tie into what's already been approved. Let me go to the floor plan here. I'll use a small one here again because it helps you understand. Again, the red is this was the existing deck. That's where the red is. This red here is the existing footprint. So you can see we have stayed within the footprint here. That was the original entry, which we've now relocated. We've pulled back a little bit of the corner of the carport. And we've also, this was the original kitchen. We've taken that square footage and pushed this over to the bedroom and pulled this back to make up that square footage. So we're not adding any square footage to the house. Where the square footage has increased is between this original footprint line and this area right here for part of the great room and the kitchen. And everything else is within the original footprint. Is there any other
Anything else to
things
present?
that might be helpful for you?
Okay. Then before we come to the board with questions and answers, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Mr. Ing, do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Seeing no one come forward, Chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
I apologize, I wasn't on the board before, so I've never seen this project before, but you definitely have a definite change of architecture, because when you look at it from eye level, you got flat roofs on the new project and conventional roofs, sloping roofs on the pre-approved project. Is that correct?
Yes,
Question.
yes, there was sloped roofs with a concrete mixed roofing on the previous one, and now we are on flat roofs. The
looking at
barrel
right
vault will
now.
be plastered. That's the only place.
North and south elevations. What are the north and south elevations? That's what those are. Okay.
Yeah. So this right here, it might help you. This is Conejo Road.
Yeah. No, I'm.
And then if you're on there, that's the perceived height that you're seeing is really about 17 feet. So you're not really getting much of a view, except for when you're coming up Conejo Road. The view that you're going to see the most right now is going to be this view. The rest of it's kind of tucked down. It's treed and it's kind of tucked down below grade of the road.
Okay.
So this is the most visible view that you're going to see.
I'm an architect. I tend to look at 3 dimensions.
No, I agree. I was just talking about if you're coming up the drive, that's the one that you're going to see the most, up the Conejo Road.
Okay. I think of some more. That's all right now. Thank
Other
you.
questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
What was the style of architecture that inspired you to do this? I mean, where did you take this from?
This is actually, I have some of the pictures that the owner was inspired by, but Robert and Nicholas, they both really have fallen in love with just very clean, contemporary style.
I had a house on Mykonos for some years.
The Mediterranean islands.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was, as my lifestyle has moved down from the large house I first lived in when I came from Santa Barbara in 1977, my needs and demands have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And now this is very close to the Mykonautico, if I may say, style of architecture, which is simple, clean, unobtrusive, and would fit my needs.
I was thinking Mediterranean islands when so the next question I have is this plaster on top of this?
It is on top of here, and then the rest of it is another product. It's
on the roof.
It's I guess the flashing details and stuff like that, which I don't have right now, but they would be similar to like a TPO or something. I have the sample here.
Well, I'm actually more interested. Now, the area around the front door, is that all plaster, or do you have some kind of detailing about that, or is that what's your thought on that?
This is what it's inspired by, and right now we're just at the point where we're exploring whether it would be plaster or whether it would be maybe a precast of some sort. But I'm going to give you some of the pictures. This is This is what it would be inspired by.
Okay.
And it would be a solid wood door. We haven't decided the design yet, but the look would be the plaster with the blue. This is similar to the pergola type that we're looking at. And then we have a polycarbonate glazing that would go in between this to cover it. This is the simplicity of the pool. Again, it's just very rustic, very humble, and very clean. Clean lines. There would be a little bit more texture in the plaster. And then
The stone.
the design, I have a stone sample, but this is the transition, which I did bring a detail today, but that is the transition of the arches and the edge of the stone. That's where that look was inspired from.
Great, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Yes.
Was there, did you talk to any of the neighbors around there about the deck?
I haven't talked to any of the neighbors about the deck this time. There's no neighbors below that are affected by it. There's no direct view to them from that location. I mean, there's one neighbor that I could go and talk to. She's been very supportive of the past two projects. There were actually two previous designs done on this lot, and she's been supportive every single time. It would be more of maybe, I think, one house up higher that might have a view of the deck.
Well, plus the deck has been approved as a bigger deck.
What? Are you talking about the roof deck or the other? No, the roof deck is new this time. It has not been brought to the board before.
Okay, other questions? While we're waiting for other questions, can we clarify, Mr. Ng? I just calculated, I know it was explained to us that the amount of deck that was previously approved under the old set of drawings has been reduced, as shown on this plan, but there appears to be a 920 square foot, or 930, some just scaling it off, new deck on top of the garage. Does that get defined as a deck? Does it get counted as a deck? If you look at the plan that we're looking at, it shows and identifies a deck on top of the garage.
Stairway to it.
And if I scale that,
It's not a garage.
yeah, right here, or on top, on top, that appears to be about another 900 and some square foot of additional deck in addition to the deck over here. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
That would
so we've
be
got a
something
total of,
separate.
so we're going to have a total of something like 9, 11, 1,200 square feet of decks on this project. Correct?
That sounds accurate.
I mean, I don't have it down to the square footage, but roughly we've got 1,200 square feet of new decks. That may help you clarify your question. Who has other questions? I will go to some questions while others are waiting. One of the things that typically we see in garages is storage, et cetera. Since you're doing away with the garage, I just want to make sure, is that the typical garage storage?
Yeah,
Is that
so
gonna-
this would be utilities, and then there would be storage.
Okay, so that's how you're going to deal with that. Roof deck we just talked about. So this exterior staircase is starting basically at grade here, and that allows you to go up to this deck over this area, correct? And there's no other way to get to that deck other than this staircase?
No, just that area.
And I'm going to save that for comments. And under the previous plan, did you see a landscape plan?
Yes.
So do you have a new landscape plan with this, or where are you
No, we're
stepping?
gonna. I'm basically have already overlaid this footprint on there, and pretty much there's very minimal that has to be
Okay,
changed.
so you're going to try to adopt that
We're going to
landscape.
adopt that,
landscape.
and I'm going to put the downspouts in the areas where I can tie directly into that approved drainage plan as well. So nothing should change on that other than some hardscaping coming off and a couple more plants called out.
Got one.
That's about it.
This landscape fits the California house, and your new Greek house fits this landscape also. Okay.
And And then the general color of this house is, do you have a color picked, or is it close to these photographs?
Let's see the.
What I did,
Can we see the landscape plan, please?
this was the old board,
Uh-huh.
and this would be, we're going to a cat face finish, and then this would be,
It's all native.
I think, it's the glacier white.
So it's more of a white color.
Yeah, it would be, this color would remain the same, this would remain the same, that would remain the
Look better
same.
with this.
This is on the metal
That's
pieces?
the doors and windows, the clad. This would be the stucco. This is the new roof. It would go on everything.
No, this works well with it.
And
On all the
also,
flat roofs?
and also up the stairs. We looked at a lot of pictures, and a lot of they look like weathered stone.
So is that a single ply material?
No, this is actually a built-up. It's got about 4.
Oh, so you're putting a built-up material,
Yeah, but it's high fire. It's a class A, and it's
but it's
fully water.
basically a smooth finish.
It can come in a rough finish as well, but we're choosing that one.
Okay.
This was originally approved for the deck, and this was originally approved for the railing, and we're keeping that the same. That's the same. This will be the same.
And this applies to this deck and also the deck up here? Or
No. Just this
that?
around the
And
pool.
And this piece up here is
is
that?
this.
Okay.
It will be this and this. Will be
Okay.
these two things. The
Okay.
Is that a plastered railing around the roof deck up around
It
this?
is, and yes, and it has some little terracotta vents that go through similar.
I think if you look at the elevation, she's showing
Yeah.
stuff there. So, and the terracotta is just terracotta color, correct?
No, it will be the same color. So all this stuff is just going to be the same color as.
So is this white or
it will
terracotta
be-
color?
It will be white. It will be the same color as the plaster.
Okay, so those, and then the
It'll
windows themselves are going to be
The
what?
same thing. It's just done in plaster. This will all be.
Well, no, but the window frames are a material,
This
so.
is yes, it's the charcoal.
Okay,
color.
so it's a charcoal color.
Yeah.
Okay,
And what
gotcha.
is the material made of? The windows?
It's aluminum clad. It's a wood aluminum
Quiet window.
clad window.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So it looks like the deck, the deck that the stairs are leading to,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the walls are taller than
Right.
maybe
It's
standing height,
it's a
so
very-
you wouldn't really see anybody.
Yeah, it's a very traditional,
Right.
where did those photographs go? Yeah, it's very similar to what you would see in the Mediterranean, of having typically, you see a lot of decks in the Mediterranean and in Greece where it's just the roof and there's a parapet wall that's
Right.
high enough to provide a railing. So that's essentially what they're proposing.
So the wall is about as high as the railing. Okay.
Yeah, more or less. I mean,
Yeah, I was
didn't
trying to
measure it, but I'm
determine
assuming
what-
it's at least
42
42
inches,
inches
at
to meet
least.
code.
Yeah.
That says right here.
Okay? Does that answer questions? Other questions? Okay. What they were trying to do is to get review after final. They came to the consent calendar thinking that this was a few changes to an originally approved project. We requested it to come to the full board because we felt there was a little more going on here than just a few changes. So we could take one of several actions. We could look at this and say, we agree, there's just a few changes and they're fine, and approve it. We could say, no, that's not the case, but we think it's okay, but you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then we could approve it, or you could say it's not approvable. I mean, there's probably a range in between that, but so we're kind of open in terms of where we should head with this, but I'll leave it up to you all.
Well, I have a few comments I'd like to make.
Yes.
In studying what you've done and really being inspired by this style of architecture, a few comments. If you go to the elevation where the stonework is, I think one of the things that really needs to be sensitive here is because this type of architecture is ancient, and what the historical context of this kind of architecture was that it was built by the materials that was on hand. So they, whatever the surrounding material was, they built. So you want to see, like around the window, how the stone shapes the window, whereas this is sort of like a glued-on kind of look. So
Yeah.
you want to be, I just want to make sure you
So we brought
apply it so it looks like an actual stone wall.
similar to, this is more along the lines of what we're talking about. This is just a sample of coloring and stuff
Right.
right now. But we're looking for stuff that has kind of the weathered face already, that it looks like it's.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but also how it's applied as well.
See, I think what Brian's getting at is, if you look at this window right here, typically, historically, they would have bridged that by one piece of stone.
A lintel.
A lintel. So, and it would have had some substantial stone in the, and I'm drawing exactly what's on this photograph. So I think what Brian is saying, where you have big openings like this, like that, and I know it's a very contemporary approach, it's a little hard to get one big piece of stone like that. So the other way I've seen that accomplished is you actually put a concrete lintel over this, because in essence, your structural engineer is going to kind of make you do something on top of this wall, and then you carry your random pattern. Because the only other way that you typically in stone structure, and that's what the Romans figured out, is they started with a keystone and then went around like that, and that formed an arch which was able to get you distance. And you really don't have that here. You've got this kind of very contemporary approach. So one of the ways you accomplish that is this just becomes gray finished concrete lintel, and then you stack your stone. I think that's what you're
Well,
getting at.
I guess my point is you've got a very ancient way of building, yet you're introducing modern elements. So there's actually, to
Right,
me, a
this was-
conflict.
this was just
well,
an
let me finish. Let me
idea.
finish. So what I see here, and it's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying there's a difference between really right on architecture and then what everyone's doing today, is you've got very large openings, but with a very traditional looking material. And if it was actually built the way they did it, that they would be concerned about how the lintel and the spacing is. So there's a certain that.
Something under the table fell.
No wonder.
So I mean, if you look at these openings here, see how?
Yeah.
And that's, it's just a question of proportion in the application of the stonework. So it actually looks very traditional. I mean, this is really beautiful, and there's a certain proportion to it, and I can see that with that. So it's kind of a struggle because a lot of this modern added element to me is kind of, it's edgy and modern, but this is kind of a timeless look.
And this is the look we're going
Yeah,
for.
so,
This was just a hash pattern that went on, and that's why I brought this in.
Great.
So that you guys would understand the intent.
So I don't have any
Yeah.
requirements,
Yeah,
but just my comments.
Just ignore the hash pattern. This is why the photo's here, so that you understand this is what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
computer drafting for you.
It is. It's the easy way out.
Are there other comments?
Yes, I have
Yes,
some
ma'am.
comments. I'm really glad you brought the pictures, because at first glance of the plans, I was really confused as to what this was as far as style went. But now that you've done that presentation, it makes a lot of sense to me. I've looked at the landscape plan that was already approved with my colleague here to my left, and the plantings will be way better with this style than they would have been with that style anyway, because they're all Mediterranean plantings with olive trees and everything, which will certainly soften this facade as well.
I'd like to point out also that the views from this house are across to Parma Park, which is
has a lot of olives.
well, not only has olives, it's fairly sparse land. It's very Greek in feeling. So
It
this fits into that
Great.
milieu.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and I think this is approvable personally from my point of view. I definitely take Brian's comments to heart too. That a little sensitivity of proportion needs to happen in the openings, but. And I don't really have a problem with your roof decks since no one is probably affected by this, given your location.
Other comments?
Yeah, I like the design, and I also agree. I don't have a problem with the roof deck. It's interesting because your comment about the way that the doors, the big openings would be applied, because in Europe, lots of times now they're taking old buildings and they're putting the metal single pane almost windows. I'm not sure, but in some ways it could work, but that's not what you want anyway. But I'm just saying sometimes we have to be open to, some of those kinds of applications. But I do really like the project.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll
yes.
make a couple of comments. On the one hand, I think that I could make the findings that the style of the architecture, given the tweaking that's going to happen in the natural materials, meet our guidelines. On the other hand, though, I don't think that a 1,200 square foot deck with exterior staircase really fits into the neighborhood, and I'm going to find in our booklet the pages that I will use to support that.
Other comments?
Could we get a clarification? The roof deck isn't 1,200 square feet, is it?
It is.
I thought you were combining both.
No. It's more than that. The time it's 900 more or less square feet of roof
deck.
on that
and
roof.
Then there's another separate deck with
which
the pool.
is roughly 12 to 1,300 square feet.
Yeah. So the combined square footage, you're talking combined square footage of 1,200.
I'm going to go to my comments because it has to do with the roof deck issue. We struggled with a project directly across the canyon from this house on this same issue. And we decided on that project, the person had an entire roof deck was much larger than what we're talking about here, but we required them to dramatically reduce the amount of roof deck directly across the canyon. In fact, probably from that home, they'll see this home. And the thing is that contrary to everybody's popular belief that it's only the view we have to take from the road or the adjacent neighbor on either side or the neighbor below, the fact is, part of the reason they have this board in play is we're supposed to be dealing with the hillside design. And as I've shared before, we have to see how this house is looked at from the community, and this house will be seen from across the canyon, even from the park. And so part of my struggle here is it's certainly a modest-sized home. It's not outrageous, but the fact is they're proposing it to be white in color, so that's going to stand out. Now, that's not to say we have I can think of at least two other homes on this same hillside, one not too far away from this Caneo Road location, it's on another road, that is a stark white, and then when you travel down on the lower road, boy, they really want you, and you travel on Mountain Drive, you can see those homes because they're white. They really stand out as compared to some other folks that have painted their houses brown or gray or whatever. So I'm kind of struggling with the whiteness of the house. I understand the desire to repeat the experience of the Mediterranean Sea, etc. But this is not the Mediterranean. We have a north-faced, oak-filled side of a canyon. So it's not the same terrain. It's not the Greek Isles. It's not the Mediterranean where the landscaping, the native landscaping is relatively sparse. We have a whole hill full of trees, oak trees. So I'm really struggling with the whiteness of what's being proposed, and I could be off base. The other thing I'm struggling with is the deck itself. Given the fact that we've really taken great pains to have other applicants reduce their decks dramatically, irregardless of where they are, and including the one that we reviewed across the canyon. And so I'm feeling like that if we allow this deck to proceed in the size that it is, that we may not be looked at as a board as being consistent in our thinking, and that may be okay. The other thing I'm struggling with is this barrel vault. Not so much that it's a barrel vault or whatever, but again, it has to do with its finish and its whiteness. And I suspect over a period of time, it's going to garner dirt and dust and whatever, and it causes the homeowner to have to constantly keep it clean if it wants to stay looking nice, as it would in the Mediterranean. So that plaster barrel vault, in my mind, presents a challenge. The other thing that and this gets down to the architecture, and this may be a little picky, but use this photograph. There's two photographs here. They're proposing surrounds around the windows, and it's literally, it looks like it's being taken from this idea here. But if you also look at, where was it? This one. If you look at this photograph, typically, like Andalusian architecture, which is a hot Mediterranean climate, typically windows were punched into the solid exterior. That's because most of these things were made of big, thick stone or adobe or whatever. And so the windows are set back in to keep them off the heat of the day, et cetera. In this case, there's a shutter. And I'm just thinking that all of the windows here are being treated in this fashion rather than perhaps a mixture of that fashion and this fashion. And what I'm fearful of, given the design approach here, is that it comes off looking a little too much like applied architecture that we might see it the old days when I was a student. They would call it Taco Bell architecture. I'm not sure that's appropriate at this point, but I'm a little concerned about that. So I'm not comfortable yet that we're here. I think the approach can be handled. I'm certainly not objecting to the style of architecture, but I don't see a complete solution yet. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, if I want to follow up, I know I'm struggling with that too, because you're implying thick stone walls, but you've got what you've got, which is not. So you're trying to bridge the gap. And to follow up with Jamie's comment about Europe, there's a difference between trendy architecture and timeless architecture. I really feel that way strongly, and I really feel that whatever that one picture is with a stone wall, I mean, that's timeless. That's something that'll survive the ages. Whereas we want to be careful, and whatever, it's the discretion of the designer. Regarding what Fred's saying, I don't have a problem with the roof deck because you're more than 15 feet away from property lines. You're very far. You're very isolated. But so I'm comfortable with the roof deck myself. And your FAR is so low that it's not like, we can go on and scrutinize it. So all my comments are recommendations. But as far as the roof deck, I'm okay with the roof deck just for the fact that it's such a large property. That's my comment.
May I ask, Mr. Chair? Yeah, may I ask, Mr. Chair, when you're speaking of the house that we was that the one that had all the illegal? Yeah, but that was illegal. So they didn't come in front of the board to ask us about
I understand.
that. So I think that's a whole different animal.
Well, I'm not sure it is. That's why I'm coming from a different point.
Because they went against our wishes, actually.
Well, I understand, but it's kind of it's a philosophical.
I see what you're saying. I think the difference for me in this one is that first of all, there's not a railing there, so you're not going to see the bodies necessarily, except for just the top part. I mean, you're a little bit more protected on this particular one, which makes me a little bit more in favor of it than opposed. If it was a railing up there, I would definitely be questioning it. But as it is, I could approve it. I do understand your feeling about the white, though. I know that feeling is wonderful in Greek villages where everything is white, and it's a particular look. In that area, though, it will really, really, really be a spotlight if it's white.
There's G.W. Smith's homes that are really white, too.
Yeah, I know. But they're usually not up in the hills. Notice that they're usually down in the flats. It's funny. So they're not viewable like up on a slope for the most part. This one will be.
We run into this problem a lot because, not a lot, but when a client comes and all of a sudden wants to really define what they're designing, and then we have people on the board here who it's not what it's supposed to be. I've mentioned it before, if a client came in front of us and said, it can be a Greek house, and then stopped right there and let the board decide what it's going to be. But I think you've taken it far enough that some of the people on the board here have decided that not what you're describing, and we may be a question here, and it is a question.
It's not what the drawings aren't describing the
No,
the pictures, or-
you've described something that maybe is not what the board is picturing.
I know Nicholas to know enough that he is very true to his heart in authentic details. He is that way in his job, and he's that way when he also designs other homes for other people. I've seen his work, and I have no doubt that he would approach this with the most care and detail of an eye to keep to looking authentic and rustic. This is what he's fallen in love with. The computer drawings don't do this justice, so that's why I brought the photos.
I would like to follow up on that. When people come before the board, it is more of an aesthetic experience for us. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of designers kind of shoot themselves in the foot when they come before us with drawings that are, cookie cutter stamp computer. So now you're trying to convince us that he's very sensitive to detail, yet he presents a product that's like, I'm not.
But this was coming. Part of this is so that we could come and make sure that we were going in the right direction, so that we could keep our modification.
Got it.
So this isn't final. We're coming in to see if this works with the modification, and we can get we don't have to go back to a staff hearing officer, and go through this all over again regarding that. So we're trying to find architecture that works with their love of the architecture that they love and their lifestyle, but we're also trying to make sure that we can keep our modification. And so that's why we're at this point. Is part of this is to see that you would support that, and we're going in the right direction. It's not detailed out yet, so.
Let's go to Denise.
Well, then your plans have to reflect what you're actually going to do, though. See, we're looking at these, and if we say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and give you project design approval based on this, then that's how it's going to be in our mind. So we need to see whatever that intent is on paper in the plans, so that it's readable to us, that we know what he's thinking. Do you get what I'm saying? In other words, for instance, I think your fenestrations need to be revisited personally. I think you've got huge openings that, don't fit with that particular style of architecture. So, that being said, we would probably request that you go back and bring us some plans that reflect that, so that we'll see exactly what your intention is based on these drawings. Because that's what we have to go by.
We can't go by your word.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I don't understand the point of where I think it's reflecting that intent elsewhere in the building, but there's one elevation where they would like to take advantage of the beautiful views.
Essentially, I think what's going on here is you need to have drawings that are delineated in a fashion that reflect what you're trying to tell us. And what the board is telling you is they don't see that today. Okay.
I think the design.
And I think that you need to have drawings here, whether they're hand-drawn or whatever, that reflect what you're trying to tell us and what you're sharing with us in these photographs, because they don't see it on these set of drawings. So that's kind of what I think I hear. Am I speaking incorrectly?
I mean, for instance, the south elevation is kind of there. The north elevation, in my opinion, is not. It's there's the flavor of the Grecian, feeling. The Greek islands is in the south elevation. I don't find it in the north elevation with the fenestrations. So, there's a little bit of a contradiction there.
Let me see if I can help you a little bit.
I'm just not understanding.
Okay.
I guess
well, let me see if I can.
The client wants large windows.
Well, let me share with you. Let me share with you a couple of things. One is, if you're going to do this, then it's much more helpful for folks to understand what you're doing if this gets delineated, so that we read that as it's deep. And I think you and I talked about that at the consent. I know it's deep, but it's not reading that's deep. And I think if you start delineated in that fashion, that way, in terms of the big windows, one of the ways to handle that.
Show you what you had asked for. asked that when you wanted to understand how the barrel
I
vault was
understand. I can do that. I can understand that, but it's not reading the way people look at things. So, having a simple sketch like this is much more meaningful in defining what this really looks like. Okay, and in terms of these big windows, one of the ways to handle that so that it reads is the fact, well, maybe I should just draw it straight on, is the fact that you can deep set those big windows. Years ago, there was a large argument on State Street by a well-known architect here in town, and I think it's the building right next to the Arlington, where it's just all glass. And there was this whole discussion about that's not Spanish architecture, it doesn't belong in State Street, et cetera. But the architect was able to convince them to allow him to do that trick, so to speak, because he set that glass back in. So one of the things that might help you here is getting that glass to set back in so that it doesn't read right out at this lintel. And by creating a design that really reflects, instead of the computer-generated pattern, really understands what that starts to look like. And the other thing that helps on these early sketches is having human scale. You can automatically start to read what things are to look at. So I think what we're trying to tell you is these drawings that you're presenting don't really tell us what we think you really want, which is what these photographs are. So I think that's the challenge. So without trying to elaborate any further, what I would suggest to the board is what I'm reading here is that nobody's quite ready yet to give this its a blessing, but I sense there is some buy-in to the general concept. So I would encourage someone to make a motion listing recommendations of areas they would like to restudy. I would also suggest that the motion also includes some definitive language about the acceptability of the size of the decks, so we can give the applicant some idea of how to proceed from this point forward, and whether or not, obviously, they should come back to the full board or to consent calendar, et cetera. But that's kind of what we probably should help them with.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up was, for some people, they're uncomfortable with the size of the deck, so possibly they can have that deck, but maybe it's not as big. Maybe that's something that we need to discuss so that they know better what to come out.
Let me comment about the big deck. The concern about a big deck is the fact that they may have a party up there. You may have a wild party and blah, blah, blah. So you don't want to disturb the neighbors and cause a racket. So if you look at the property, it doesn't look like it's going to disturb any neighbors if you're going to have some type of celebration if there are a party. So in this case,
At the age of 86, I'm not about to have wild parties.
As we say, as Fred would say, your future, someone buys that later, we have to take that into account. So that's why I'm not really concerned about the large deck, because I don't think it's going to be a neighborhood issue with that respect, because there's nothing really close to it, nor is there anything real up or below it that will be affected by it.
Well, I'd like to give my opinion of that, because I don't agree with you, because on page 61 in our guidelines, which is what we work from, it's in 34, number 1, in hillside areas, special consideration is required for placement of decks and outdoor courtyard placement. Depending on the topography, these features have the potential to greatly affect neighbors' privacy and noise levels. In addition, if we were to approve a deck of this size, it sets the precedent for all the other houses in that neighborhood. So I don't think that's the direction I want to go. And then one thing we haven't talked about is, how does the board feel about replacing the garage with the carport? On a substantial piece of architecture like this, I heard the applicant say that they thought that the carport complemented the design, but I'm just wanted to hear what the board thought about that.
Okay. Other comments? Yes.
I'm okay with the carport. I think it works with the architectural point of view that they have. I also would like to encourage you, Bernie, to look at A100 on this plan set so that you can see where this house is actually located.
I have it right in front of me.
And that proposed roof deck is so far away from anybody that there is no way it's going to bother anybody, in my humble opinion. But, I mean, it is very, 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 very far away. I could measure it out, but this is at 16th scale. It's
If I could add something,
hundreds
I've
and
also
hundreds of
been
feet away.
told that the land on the other side of El Conejo is unbuildable land, so there'll never be a house
above you.
built above us looking down.
So, okay, makes my point further. Okay, well,
Other
where
comments?
are we?
We need to have someone make a motion to give this applicant some direction. Who's willing to set
All
forth?
right, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Okay. We move to continue this project. I guess back to the full board with the following comments. I think the board appreciates the style of architecture and can support it. However, the board would like to see a more accurate detailing and delineation of the actual elevations that more accurately reflect what the architect and owner is intent. I'd like to stop my motion for a second and get a straw vote about the roof deck, or should I just, because I could support the roof deck, but I'm not sure if the whole board can support it, so I don't know if I want to continue and add
Straw
that
vote,
to our
then?
motion.
Quick straw
Well, why
vote.
don't you stop your motion and ask for a straw vote on the
Okay,
deck
I'd like to make a
start
straw
with.
vote about the roof deck. Who could support the roof deck in its current size? So we have 4, and then 2 opposed. Okay, so I'm going to include it. So I'm going to include the board. Majority of the board supports the current size of the roof deck. Is there any landscaping?
Yes, there's an existing landscape plan that
we were
they're.
comfortable with it.
We're
Okay,
comfortable with that.
The landscape plan is appropriate. And that's my motion.
I think we
Is there
had,
a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
We had, probably should put in about the colors, we had discussion about the colors of the
Oh,
white.
yeah, the
and
board
how-
would like to invite maybe a less brighter color, try a different color other than white for the exterior color. A more
Muted.
more muted color, more of an earth tone clay color, perhaps.
If you can't,
Okay, well,
Okay, I'll stop.
we have a friendly amendment being suggested, so is that acceptable to maker of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, and is there the second, who seconded? Okay, and you're making so you're accepting, that's acceptable.
Well, I would like to see a color, I like the white, but I think a muted white rather than a bright white. I think a white is, if we change it to something with a sandstone, no, it doesn't go with the style of architecture.
So a muted white.
Muted white, yeah.
So change that to muted white.
Okay, so that's acceptable with the first and second, okay. So now, somebody wants to
okay.
add something?
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, well, if you think that the deck is okay, then, I question why the color wouldn't be okay. The thing about, I agree, if you go with a darker color, it's going to be more like Moroccan or something like that looking. But,
You have a
Do you get-
comment about my motion?
well, that's what I was saying is like, if the deck size doesn't bother you because nobody will see it really, then why would the white color bother you?
Well, I'm thinking more of the white of the overall, of the whole house, not just the deck. And
I
wasn't-
know.
Well,
I mean, I'm just asking
because
a
it's
question.
reflective from down the park, can look up and see it, and that was the issue. Was
So more of a cream white or something?
What
like
was
that?
the
white.
floor? We're we're playing with you here. Apologize, but
No,
that's
I
the
think we're
floor.
fine about the deck surface.
That's the floor of the deck, right?
Yeah, that wasn't what we're talking about. We're
No,
talking
that's not
about the
what I'm-
color of the house.
Okay.
We're not talking about the deck
The
surface.
deck doesn't have anything to do with this then. Okay.
Okay, so are you?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Just
So
bringing it up.
that's the motion on the floor. Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'm going to be voting against this because I disagree. I understand about the distance from the property, But the acoustics of, and I'm not any adherence to the current applicant. I'm with Brian that we have to look at these for future occupancies. The acoustics of having that big open deck in this canyon is, in my mind, not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. So I am not going to support this motion for that reason. And I agree with all the other components of the motion, but I disagree with that component, so I'll be voting no.
I think the difference between having a deck and having it on the ground is not really substantial here. It's not a difference. I mean, if we don't give them the deck, they're still going to, if they have a huge party, they're going to have it on the ground.
But it's down in behind the trees, not above the trees.
So we still have solid walls around this deck.
Has there been a size that you have approved in the past? I mean, that's just where the parapet gets delineated for drainage without restrictions, right?
In my view, if we're down to 400 square feet or less of decks on these houses, the better. But we continue to see people that want to come in and have huge decks, et cetera. And I'm philosophically not in favor of
Would
that.
the maker of the motion be all right with requesting that they restudy the size of the deck?
Yes, study the resizing of the deck.
Is that okay with
But
the
you also
second?
know that a majority support it, but there's certain members that are against it, so that might be something to look at.
So are you changing your motion?
To say study the size.
Yeah, study the size of the deck,
That
possibly reducing
I
it.
approve second.
Is that okay to the seconder? Okay. So did we catch the change there? Okay. All right. Further, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Is there further comments?
So we added the word study.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that means.
It means
study
look
the
at it
deck.
and see if you can't reduce it.
So study, do you want to say that, or do you
you
just
wanted
want
to say require, and I'm saying study because there is a
Because
few
we're
of us
not
on the
all
board that
opposed.
feel that the size is fine. But if they want, I think what we're kind of telling them is we really would like to see a smaller deck if you want a more overall friendly response from the board as a whole.
I was just going to say that I think it's important for the applicants, and we really appreciate you working with us, because this is how we end up with projects that last a lot longer than we do. It's not really about us, and it's not about us living in the house as much as we're trying to create these designs that fit in, and they're going to last 100 more years or whatever.
We hope.
Well,
Not really.
Can you
Let's have the motion reread just to make sure everyone understands it.
The board appreciates the style of the architecture, but provide more detailed delineation to more accurately reflect
Oops, you got
the
it.
architecture.
Sorry. The TV guys want you to talk on the mic.
Okay. The board appreciates the style of the architecture, but to provide a more detailed delineation to more accurately reflect the architecture's vision. The landscape plan is acceptable. Study exterior color to a more muted white, and study reducing the size of the roof deck.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So is that the motion? Everyone understand? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay.
One more question.
Yes.
How does this affect the request regarding the substantial conformance, the support for that, so that...
At this point, it shouldn't change any of that. David, is that how we read it, or do we need a separate motion for that?
Just wondering, because I know that Suzanne, I talked to her today at the counter, and she's trying to get that wrapped up before she moves.
I think we support
on
it.
Thursday.
Perhaps for the applicant's benefit, the board can make a comment to that effect. About
All right, let's bring it back to the full board. We'll probably need a second motion here specifically so that we address the either supporting or not supporting the current modification for the setback.
And it's the front setback.
It's the front setback. So if you're amenable, then the motion could be made that says specifically that we're okay with the modification as it now is in place.
Yeah, I'd say the modification is aesthetically appropriate, does not pose consistency issues with the following design guidelines or required findings.
Okay, and that's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any?
Did you do the MPO comments?
We didn't give it a
we
design.
didn't. Yeah, we're sending them back. But they need something just for this modification. So that's the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain because I don't know what the modification really is.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Go. Thank you. All right, a little bit behind. Let's go to our last item of the day. This is the last item. Item number 4, 1533 San Miguel Avenue. This is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record the project description.
One set of your plans.
Proposal for a 301 square foot of lower level additions and for a 956 square foot of main upper level additions to an existing 1,142 square foot, one-story single-family residence with an attached 239 square foot one-car garage. The proposal includes demolition of the existing garage, construction of a new attached 440 square foot two-car garage at the at the lower level, along with a new driveway and turnaround. The project includes new 3-foot high retaining walls, a new 6-foot-high wood fence. Proposed total of 2,839 square feet on an 11,771 square foot lot is 72% of the required maximum floor to lot area ratio. The property is located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone and requires coastal review. This project will address violations in zoning information ZIR 2015-00382. The applicant is requesting project design approval. All right, welcome. If you could introduce yourself, please.
My name is Misael Contreras.
Okay, and if you could share with us what you're doing.
Of course.
So this property has ocean views along the south here, and the violations that we're addressing are part of the garage, which we're doing away with completely.
I can't hear you.
This project proposes to remodel the second story. The only walls that we are keeping are 3 of the exterior walls and 1 of the main interior walls. And we are not touching any of the first story. So on the second story, we are vaulting the entire great room, which is what we're calling this. We're tying together the living room and the kitchen and the dining area to create this great room experience with a vaulted ceiling and views out towards the ocean. We are also proposing a family room at the first level with the deck down to the exterior landscaped area down below. And we are demolishing the 2-car garage and proposing a new 2-car garage down below.
Looks like there's a door. Some kind of drafting glitch. Oops. Just Claude.
So we have revised the materials from our initial submittal. Not sure if everyone has had a chance to review these. We're doing cedar shake shingles on the exterior with a stone veneer. It's going to be limestone from El Dorado. And I've also brought a color board and renderings for your review. This is going to be a standing seam metal roof with cool weathered copper finish. This is going to be a green stained wood shingles. So this is the hedgerow from Cabot, semi-solid stain. So you could see the texture of the wood still. And the accents will be a burgundy or in red finish. Here, let me pass these around. Here's some renderings. And our trim and eave soffit will be Swiss coffee. There won't be any exterior lighting proposed or visible. They're going to be all in the eave soffit. Recessed around the perimeter of the house. For the site will be we will do a 3-foot high retaining wall to create a level surface. Let me see if that's evident in the site plan. And proposing retaining walls and a cedar wood fence above this retaining wall to flatten this area out so that it's more usable. There will also be a new deck on the second story, 126 square feet, in order to help capture those views out towards the ocean. We're removing the driveway and proposing a new colored concrete driveway and a new walkway to the main entry area. And we are currently working on a landscape plan, but we should have that for the next review. The style is, we're looking for a beach theme. Let's see what our elevations.
Right. Is there only one copy of that?
It's the same thing.
No.
So on the interior, we're
It's the same.
proposing to have
Is it
trusses,
Oh, maybe we should see his.
faux trusses above the vaulted ceiling.
Okay. Anything else you want to share with us?
I think that's it.
Okay. There's only one set of existing photographs. They're coming around, so you may not have seen them yet. Okay. Anything else? That's it?
I believe that's it, yes.
Okay. All right. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, let's go to public hearing, or public portion. And I do have one speaker. Is it Joe Lackada? If you'd come forward, please, and use this microphone right here. You can sit in that chair. You have 2 minutes to share with the board your comments.
Hi, my name is Joe Lackada. I live just to the west of the property, similar sized property. After looking at the elevations, and I think the elevations are a nicely done set of elevations, our only input would be, and with respect to good neighbor guidelines and tips, the gable ends on the front and back of the house, when you look at the profile from the west and east, they stick out. And it kind of creates an impact when looking at the roof line and roof structure from the east and west. And we were wondering whether or not the hip design could be continued all the way around. So you don't have these two large, like dormer gables sitting out, which kind of are disruptive when you look to a certain extent from the east and west.
Can you point what you're talking about?
So this is the entry.
And what are you saying sticks out?
The gable ends above the
So there's
dining room and the great room.
There's two gable ends here, one here, one. This is from the street, this
would
is
be-
from the bottom of the
This
lot.
is how it looks when you look from the, west, yeah, from looking from the west to the east. Instead of having this similar hip structure, you have this abrupt gable end sticking out, which really intrudes into this skyline. And it gets an impact when you look at it from the front and back. From the side, east and west, and that's like the same thing over here. It just is, to us, it seems like it's a bit, it just stands out and becomes an impact.
I understand.
Okay.
The only other question I had, it may not be relevant to today's hearing, but I know there was a condition put on the parcel where Ms. Weiss, during the Planning Commission, noted that we have a real parking issue in the neighborhood, and there's supposed to be 2 extra parking spaces created, and we don't see that really delineated anywhere, and I don't know how that may or may not impact the design of the elevations. In case you wanted to make them covered and attached versus just open slabs or whatever.
Okay.
Have you taken into consideration?
We have the 2-car garage. We haven't proposed any new parking.
Well, I know it's a condition on the lot
Okay,
split.
I'm going to need to draw this to close. You only have 2 minutes to share that. So we'll pick that up in our comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ng, do we have any other speakers?
No, that is the only
Do we
one.
have any other?
And no written correspondence.
All right, so before we go into questions, it sounds like there was some action taken on this property via the Planning Commission, or at least the planning staff. So what I'm confused about, because I did walk out to the site, there appears to be an access drive, or right-of-way, that's chained off at the top of the street that goes all the way down. It appeared to be a very large, deep lot. So at some point, is this also undeveloped down here?
That's undeveloped.
Okay, and there's what appears to be an old orchard. A lot of the trees look like they've been chopped down. So it goes down to a hedge down in here. So that's another property, correct? So, Mr. Ng, do we know at some point this large parcel got divided up into 2 pieces? Is that why we're seeing this the way it is?
Yeah, it's my understanding that it did get divided. With regards to the neighbor's comment on the parking, it's something that I will have to double check
look
on.
into. So there was a planning commission action to split this lot, or this larger parcel into 2 lots at some point, correct?
Yes, I don't have the
So
exact.
we'll need to know about any parking requirement that may have been stipulated.
Sure, I'll look into that.
All right, let's go to questions then. Who's that? Is that me?
Up, down on the floor.
Me.
I don't have any.
I thought I had turned it off. Any other questions?
Yes, have you showed your proposal to some of your neighbors?
Yes, we have.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, the owner of the property was the one that went around and presented our project as well as some of the renderings. I believe everything went well. We didn't get any objections, but
The new owner, because didn't this sell recently?
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, well, yeah, go ahead.
Floor plans, just what you've added.
So what we added is we brought this out about from where this door is. It's from right here. It's from here down. This portion.
Probably should include
A demo.
a on top of this to show what has been added on top of it.
Yeah, so we understand what got added.
Right.
So you've added
So-
something down in that corner over there?
Correct. So this wall is an existing wall. These are the
Added
new
that
walls.
whole thing.
Right. All this
So
is new.
the
So this is where the
single-story garage was here,
was
correct?
there.
Okay. So, yeah, it would be very helpful when you come back to make sure you give us a drawing showing what was added and how it
So
sits
we
the
can
front.
see it right on one drawing.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the other
No
thing was, it didn't look like there was a way into those bedrooms from the hallway.
going to.
There's a hole here. It's
So
it's
your computer forgot to leave off
Oh,
those
okay.
doors.
I turned them off. It's just.
Okay. Other questions? So you don't have a site section, so I was trying to understand the extent of the driveway comes, this is the new driveway,
Correct.
and so what happens after we get down to here? What's going on?
So we pull into the two-car garage, which extends out to here, and you have the 2 parking spaces right under.
Okay,
this roof.
so you've got some kind of paving that goes out like that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what's this?
Retaining. This is going to be leveled out. So this is our 3-foot stone wall.
Okay, and then what is that right there? Is that a footing, or is that a curb, or what is that?
It's at an angle. It's sloped, so that's the bottom of the line hitting the soil.
Oh, so this is depicting a sloped wall.
Right.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. So the extent of the driveway is here. Have you had that reviewed by city staff in terms of having enough room to make a maneuver to get into these garages?
We have a template, right, that we...
Okay. No, but I understand that.
We have not submitted to have...
City, okay, yeah, because they have their own criteria, so sometimes we get people in here that have thought they figured it out, and then once they show it to staff says, no, we don't agree, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So.
When transportation planning has reviewed it.
Oh, it has, okay, then I stand corrected. All right. Then the parking spaces we'll find out about. Those I think answer my questions. I'll reserve everything else for comments. Okay, other questions? Okay, the applicant's here for project design approval. So.
The house doesn't have a fireplace, true? I don't see one. Okay.
So we're here for comments.
I have a question, I'm sorry. Yes, when I look at A101, I'm trying to figure out how you get to the front door on this plan, because you say a D walkway, which is demo, right?
It's this, for some reason it came out dash. It's these 2 lines that are curved from the sidewalk right here.
That's the new walkway.
This is the new walkway, correct.
Oh, okay. That's not very clear.
Yeah.
And is there no more porch
make
then? So you're demoing a covered porch?
We're removing that porch, correct.
So you're just going to walk straight into the front without anything overhead?
The entry is recessed into the
your eaves are protecting the front door then?
Yes. Look at the floor plan, the front door.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah.
1533.
So there was a slab for a 2-car garage initially built? And
There was a slab there. It's existing. I'm not sure if it was for parking, but there is an
that's
existing.
going to come out.
Yeah.
Because the driveway.
Because that's where the driveway is going, correct.
This is the last.
Yes.
So the walkway, is it true that the walkway does not come off of the street, but rather it comes off of the driveway?
No. If you
No, I'm
look at
not
the
reading
drawing,
it right.
come over here.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to see.
This is the new walkway from the street sidewalk into the front door. This is existing, and that's going to be taken away.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Other questions or comments? We're actually at comments, so this project's seeking project design approval.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I can support the project. I'm just a little uncomfortable with the standing metal seam roof for this particular house. I'm just thinking it actually is aesthetically a little more appropriate to have this type of asphalt shingles. The standing metal doesn't seem consistent with the style of the neighborhood. And I kind of agree with the neighbor about the gable roofs. I think if they were, you didn't have the gable roofs, that also is very consistent with the neighborhood too. But
Is that gable roof is reflective of the volume inside? Is that why you?
Oh, is that why you
We're
did that?
vaulting this whole roof.
Oh, I see.
That's why the gable is.
So the
okay.
cable, right.
I don't, that doesn't
It's,
bother me.
it's not that big of a deal. I just, but yeah, if it's art, I can see
I
that.
think it looks good. There's nothing really, I mean, usually on a hip roof, you don't like a gable end, but it changes enough that it fits in with the changes of as you go around the roof. And yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Let's see what the other elevation is right there. Sure. That's at the front.
This is the
front door. I don't object to that.
Other comments?
Yes, I have to agree with Brian about the standing seam metal roof on this particular home. I really like them, so I think they're great, except for with this style of architecture, I really don't think it fits at all. It lends itself to a more modern type of home, and I would love to see that be just, something else, asphalt shingle or something of that nature.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, I was just having trouble with the stair stepping of the stone veneer on the side of the house. I don't know if anyone else.
Where are you? Where are you?
You
Right here?
can see with these pictures best. Yeah. Does that bother anybody else?
Where are you? Right here.
Oh, this. Yeah,
This stepping down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm not overly concerned about that.
Did you bring a sample of the stone with you, or are we not there
You brought a
yet?
photograph.
I only brought
Can
a
we-
picture.
Can we see what it is?
It's a stacked veneer.
Flagstones, vertical flagstones.
Okay.
My comment,
yes.
and I'm probably the only one that doesn't necessarily think that this color reflects the beach theme, and I mean, maybe I could go along if the board thinks it does and the applicant thinks it does, but I would want to see some other houses like the ones next door on both sides, and then see this one, how they look together, how the streetscape fits with it, with the color.
The board has entertained these colors in the past couple of months.
Here's
So this, okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Any more comments? I think in general the direction is kind of acceptable, but I think this has more work to be done. One is certainly the standing seam roof as it's now being presented, it's not convincing enough. I think that's part of the challenge here. There are some standing seam roofs in the greater neighborhood, but in walking this section of San Miguel Avenue, there isn't. There's some red tile roofs. There's a house, 1, 2, 3, 3 down to the right, looking up the hill, I think. A lot of them are still the asphalt shingles that were part of the original set of homes that were built during that period. So I kind of agree with my colleagues. I'm not totally convinced. I could buy into a standing seam roof, but the way it's being presented today isn't quite convinced me. The other thing that bothers me about this house is it's a 10-foot plate height on this whole section. And so the proportions of these standard windows, which I'm sure are at 6 foot 8 inches, which is typically how we put residential windows.
They're at 7.
Yeah, 7, 6, 8. Typically we do 6, 8, but 7.0 is what we do in commercial and institutional work. But anyway, it's close enough. One of my problems is I think this could be a much more acceptable set of elevations if we got the bulk of the house down at a traditional 8-foot plate. I can kind of understand the need in the great room to have an elevated higher plate, and given the fact that this is just essentially kind of a one-story, at least from the street, because remember this lot slopes down. I could kind of buy into maybe a little higher plate line on the great room, which would, I think, help resolve this geometry here. And, one of the things that typically you look at when you do this move, it really, a lot of times, tries to reflect what's going on the inside. In other words, you're reflecting this great room, which means this element would have come over to here. And right now it just looks a little odd because the proportions don't quite work. It works on the backside to some degree because it does reflect the great room. So I think the roof shape and the plate heights need further resolution to kind of get this house to a point where it really would look nice if you could resolve that issue. But just to make it a blanket 10-foot plate around the whole house is, I just don't think appropriate, given the general direction of the design approach that you're trying to take. So I think that needs some work. I think that I'm really going to be interested in on the landscaping plan, because we've got an opportunity on basically a bare lot at this point, an opportunity to do some decent landscaping, and particularly in how you deal with what appears to be wants to be kind of a flat area off of the lower level where the family room comes out. So I think that needs a little work. I'm going to be interested in the landscape plan, certainly for the front yard, in terms of reflecting. And as I recall, there is no the sidewalks are really limited in this neighborhood. So, and as you can see from here, this street really narrows down. I mean, it gets really cramped. I had to park further down and walk back because there's not really a place to park. So resolving the parking space, or understanding what the Planning Commission's direction was, that's fairly important in terms of, do we need to provide some additional off-street parking. So I think, in my view, this is kind of there, but it needs a lot of massaging to get to a better place.
We did some playing around with the roofs and the plates at different elevations, and I think that what made the most sense was having it at 10 foot, just because of the size of the.
I understand that, but as an architect, I kind of look at it a little differently.
Right.
Okay. All right, those are my comments. So the project is here seeking project design approval. So we can either give it project design approval, we can give it project design approval with additional comments, or we could request the project come back with comments and general direction to the applicant.
I'll try making a motion.
Yes.
Okay, so I move to continue the project for 2 weeks, or however long you like, with the following comments. First of all,
continue to the full board?
To the full board, okay. To return to the full board. And first of all, the majority of the board thinks the project is going in an appropriate direction to meet our compatibility guidelines. Number 2, we'd like to see you revise the proportions of the windows. 3, modify the roof shape and plate heights if possible. 4, bring in alternatives to roof material. 5, bring in a full landscaping plan with special attention to the pedestrian entryway, how that fits to the neighborhood. And the last one is bring us information about the resolution of the parking spaces if required by the Planning Commission.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a comment. Did we,
Yes.
on the roof, did we say bring,
Yeah, she said.
Alternatives.
oh, no, modify roof slope and plate, or is it just modify the plate height?
I think she said slope.
She said
Study.
both.
I said slope and plate height.
Okay.
I noticed she said if possible. It seems like it is possible.
Okay, so we could scratch the if possible.
The issue, the geometry, the three-dimensional geometry exercise that they'll run into if they start moving some of the plate height down and keeping some of it up is the slopes change just because of the geometry.
And I want to get the support, so I would like to just, doesn't have to be in the motion, I guess, but I just want you to know that I might be the only one, but I'd like to see some other options for the exterior color.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. There's a second. Is there any further discussion?
Was there a mention of changing the roofs from
Yes.
standing seam?
Yes, there was.
Just address that.
I think I said that.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the applicant if he would like to come back in 2 weeks so that we have that officially in the motion. or if you want
That's
to
fine.
come back.
2 weeks?
Okay.
Okay, 2 weeks. It's part of the motion.
On a Tuesday, I believe. Didn't you
No,
say?
no, it'll be on a Monday. It's just next week, we don't meet as a regular, but we have consent, and the consent is on a holiday. Okay, any other further discussion? No? Hearing none, the chair will call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ing, is there any further business before the board?
No, there is not.
Okay, the chair will adjourn the January 11th, 2060 Single Family Design Board.
Here I stand, watching the tide roll out.